No niin, kiitos Alex Schulman ja Elina Hirvonen. Mä luulen, että mä tein jonkun tällaisen niin kuin pietasaralaisen käännöksen siitä Alex Schulmanin kirjasta. Sen nimihän on Elon jääneet tosiaan. Ja sen on kääntänyt muuten Jaana Nikula, joka on kääntynyt itse asiassa 3 meidän kirjailijoista täällä tänään, eli myös Anne Svärdin ja Jakob Lindin, ja myös muut muuten. Seuraavaksi, jag byter till svenska nu. Nina Wähä fick Sveriges Radios romanpris i fjol för sin bok Testamente. Och hon sa i någon intervju där att den, i samband med prisutdelningen att den här boken kom till liksom i någon slags sån här liksom flöde av ord. Och det finns någonting av det i den här boken också. Det är en sån här myllrande släkthistoria som utspelar sig i Tornedalen. Och här kommer vi tillbaka till det här finska spåret som finns här ikväll. Nina Wähä kommer att intervjuas av Saara Turunen. Hon är nu också utgiven på svenska faktiskt. Saara Turunens sivuhenkilö blev utgiven här i fjol, eller var det 2 år sedan på svenska som sidopersonen i översättning av Malin Kivelä. Saara Turunens senaste bok, viimeinen kirja, on Järjettömät asiat som kom här i våras. Och den är en väldigt underhållande sån här relationsroman. Jag önskar er välkomna hit till scenen och jag vill också säga hej till publiken som sitter där hemma och tittar, eller var ni nu sitter och tittar, men jag har liksom glömt att uppmärksamma att vi faktiskt har den här streamen här. Men välkomna!
Tack! Hej! Hej! Kiitos! Hello everybody and good evening and hi Nina. Nice to be here with you. Terve. So you have written this very great book, which is called Testament, and this book is translated by Katri Manninen, and I think, at least in my opinion, the translation works very well, and I think it's very nice translation. Katri Manninen is very good translator, so that's great. The Testament is a family story. There's a big family, and it happens mainly in Tornionjokilaakso, but also a little bit in Stockholm, and also a little bit in Karelia, this part that was left in the Russian side after the war. So, first of all, I wanted to ask, what made you to write this book? Like, what were your most important starting points to write it?
Well, I think I always knew that as long as I've been writing, that at some point I would write something about this place, which is a place where I didn't grow up there, but my mother's family is from there, and I spent a lot of my childhood summers there. And I think I've always known that I would write about this place and about the people that inhabit it to me. But I started writing it when my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, because I think that you know the disease and how it works, but her having the diagnosis made me start to think about all these things with memory and experience, and how quickly we forget the people who lived before us somehow. So I mean, it's not Testamente. It's not biography in any way about my family, but it's a story about a family similar to my.
Okay. Okay. I was also thinking that this is your third book already. You have written 2 books before. So what made you to write in the very first place? Like, why did you started to write?
From the beginning?
Yes.
Well, I think I've always been trying to tell stories somehow. I mean, if you Google me, you will find out that I was trying to be an actress once, and I was in a band. But I think all of these things were really me trying to find a way to tell stories, and that's why I eventually realized, you know, when you're an actress, there's very very little control of the story being told. You're just like a puppet in the story, and in a band, you're like there's democracy in the band, so you have to like compromise. but when you're writing, there's no compromise.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, I'm not sure if I will always write books, but I think I will always want to tell stories.
Yeah. I was also going to ask, like, I noticed that you are also an actress, so I wanted to ask, like, does it like affect somehow in your writing? Like, do you think it makes it easier somehow to tell the story that you also have the acting background?
I mean, I would never say that writing is easy, but I think that for me, writing and acting is actually quite similar. But because when I write, I don't know. Sometimes I think that I only write monologues, really. That I hear voices in my head, and then I just write them down, you know. And finding that voice is, I don't know. To me, it's kind of the same kind of work you do as an actress, trying to find the work of the part you're playing. So yeah, to me, they're related very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So your book is quite thick. It's 550 pages, at least the Finnish version.
Oh.
Yes. But I have to say it was very quick to read. I mean, it took some days and not more, and I really felt like I want to turn the pages and see what happens next. So I was wondering, like, did it take you for a long time to find the correct way to tell the story, or did it just the language? Did it come like immediately when you started to write?
Well, I think the language it came, but well, this is a very long story about how I actually wrote this book. But
tell,
I will.
Please.
But when I started writing it, my grandmother had her diagnosed, and I hadn't written because I wrote 2 books before, but that was like more than 10 years ago, and I had a very long break where I did not write. I mean, I didn't sit at home and write thousands of pages that were rejected. I didn't write, and I mean, it was perfectly fine for me not writing. I wouldn't say I love writing. It doesn't make me happy, but somehow it feels maybe important. Okay, anyway, so I had a long break from writing, and then I had to start writing again. I felt like the urge. I had to start writing, and then I was terrified because, as you said, it's a thick book. But I mean, all books, it's such an accomplishment. I think there's so many words in the books. Yeah, and you have to find them and just put them in the right order. So I was terrified, and I thought, okay, I can't do it. But whenever people ask me, but what is your advice? You've been writing books. What should I do? I want to write a book. I always say, write a short story. Because a short story, it doesn't scare me, at least. So that's what I did to myself. I started writing short stories, and I thought, okay, I will write about Tornedalen, and I will write about a family with a lot of siblings, and every sibling will have his or her own short story, and they will take place somewhere between maybe the 1940s up until today. And I don't know how many, maybe I will write 8, I will write 10, I don't care. I just started writing them without any plan, really. So I started, maybe the first story I started, it was about a young woman going home to celebrate Christmas, which is also now the first chapter of this novel. Then it went okay. Maybe I got maybe 2 or 3 pages in the short story. Then I started having a lot of problems because of all the decisions you have to make, you know, when you're writing. So I thought, I think I will just, let it rest for a while. And then I started another short story, and then I got some pages in, and then I had these problems again. So I thought, we'll let this one rest as well. And then I just kept going like this. I started new short stories without any plan, really. And then after a while, I realized as I was writing that I was actually finding out information. Maybe I was writing like the, 5th short story, and suddenly 2 people were talking in it, and I realized, they're talking about her. oh, this is interesting. And I started listening and writing down what they were saying. And then I got some new information, which made it able for me to pick up the first story again and start writing that. So I was doing this for a long time and writing hundreds of pages. But I mean, then I was very happy because I was able to write, a lot of pages. But I was also worried because I thought the short stories would take place like in different times and places, maybe. But they would be connected by this family somehow. Anyway, so I talked to my publisher and he asked me, well, how is it going? Oh, it's going quite good, but they're all kind of interested in the same problems, really, like the same events in this family. There was a fire of one garage, and they were all so. Okay, I told you this was a long story. Okay, but eventually I had written like half of the actual book, and then we had a meeting, and my publisher said, "Well, I think you have to make your decision now. Is it going to be like a collection of short stories, or are you actually writing a novel?" Yeah, I was like, "Oh, well." It's probably a novel. You're probably right. Yeah. So then the actual work started for me, at least, because up until then it was more like, to me a big part of writing is just listening to voices in my head. I mean, I'm very happy that it's being published, because otherwise, I mean, who would I be? Yeah. Just hearing voices. Anyway, so after that, I realized, okay, if I want to keep all of these siblings in one novel, I need to create this narrator. And that was actually what took the longest and was the hardest work for me in writing this book.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the narrator is also interesting question, like, because it's very peculiar voice. I think it's not like the most obvious way maybe to tell the story nowadays to have this kind of a narrator. So I was wondering, like, how did you came up with this idea? Or
well, I think maybe I think of that narrator. For me, I picture the narrator as a gubbe, the Swedish word. Yeah, he's like sitting and he's very full of himself, thinking that he has the right to tell the story. Because me as a person, I'm not that kind of a person, you know. But so for me, to be able to tell this story and to be able to say, wait, all of this is important, because I didn't want to cut anyone out. I didn't have the heart to, like, when I had when all of these siblings were there, and I realized, okay, I have to make this into a novel. The smart thing to do would probably be to kill half of them, just or not kill them, because I mean they're not alive because they're characters, but just cut them out. But I decided that I wanted to keep all of them, and actually there came some more after that as well, so they became what was the question?
Yeah, the narrator.
So I picture him as an old man, thinking he's very wise, very full of himself, but I also think of him maybe as apropos acting, that he's maybe like in Brecht's dramas, there's someone telling the story and holding our hand, because I think in Testamente you really need someone to hold your hand, even if you don't notice the voice. I mean, because you don't have to notice the voice, you can just read the book, and if you read it and you're thinking, who is this Gubbe? But you can just read it. But there is a voice, and the voice is nudging you and holding your hand, even if you don't notice it, saying, don't forget this, and don't worry about this, and more about this later, and etc.
I didn't really exactly thought the narrator as kind of like Gubbe, but it's true that it's very self-confident. But it's interesting that you mentioned the Brecht, because now it really makes sense. It somehow distances you sometimes to take a little look from outside.
Yeah, and a big part of, at some points in the writing process, also this Gubbe, he was very present, and he would come in every chapter and on every page, and comment on the characters, and he was really trying to take over. So at some point I had to just like, no, you get this much in the beginning of every chapter. Now he has like a he starts every chapter telling what he thinks the chapter is about, and then at some places he comes in, but
interesting. I was thinking about the characters of the book, because I noticed when I was reading the book that some of the characters became like very dear to me, like maybe Anni, that you start the book with Anni and you also finish it with her, and also Siiri, because Siiri's story is told from the very beginning. But also also Lahja and Tarmo were very, very interesting characters. Maybe Lahja, because I don't know, I like these female stories, but Tarmo also had maybe a little bit different story. He went to Helsinki and stuff. But what do you think about, like, is there a main character for you among them, or would you prefer that they are all read in equally?
Well, for me, it's Anni is the main character, but also Siiri has like because it's like the book is in 3 parts. So I would say that the first and the last part are Anni's parts, and then the middle part is Siiri's part, which was actually not with the whole story about her growing up in wartime and how she met her husband and moved up north and everything. I didn't want to write about it. It was actually the last part I wrote for the book because I thought I didn't want to write about the war because people would be so angry with me because people who are interested in war know a lot of things about wars. But then eventually I was like, I had to start writing about it because I couldn't understand the series motives, because at first when I was writing, I thought this is not a story about a family; it's a story about siblings and about how they work together. And the parents were not important in this idea. But the more I was writing, and then the father came, and he was such an unpleasant man. And the mother, she didn't do anything; she was just like humming and being nice. So I could understand him, because he was very easy to understand, very clear. But I couldn't understand her. So eventually, I was like, okay, I have to write about her because I have to understand her. And when I started writing, the first thing she said was like something like, "All of my life has been a surprise." Oh. That's interesting, I thought. Tell me more, please. And then she told the story to me about...
I think her story is very interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. After having heard it, I was very... I felt very strongly for her. And then it felt like important to me to give her the opportunity of a happy ending or, a second chance maybe. Because I think in a lot of families that are dysfunctional, there are... These things happen repeatedly that because of some kind of something happens anyway, and it's like someone opens a window, and that window means change. Someone could actually leave this abusive husband, or they could maybe get a divorce. But usually, when that window opens, maybe it's after a party and people are drunk and things happen, but usually that window just slowly closes and nothing happens. Change is very rare, I think. In dysfunctional families, it just goes on. But I thought maybe in this family, she actually jumps out of the window. So that's what she did.
Yeah. Now when you say it, it was really nice that she had a good ending. It was like empowering, or maybe a feminist way, a little bit to finish the story in that sense. That because in so many stories, this kind of female characters become destroyed.
Yeah, she would be punished somehow. But I thought it was. I enjoyed the idea of her. Both of her actually growing bigger after the divorce, because women, growing big is never a positive thing, but for her it was, because she didn't have to work as much, and then also I liked the idea of giving her, she was, I don't know, she was in her 50s, and giving her an orgasm before she died,
Yeah, and new love
so
also.
Yeah.
So I was also thinking that, of course, it's interesting for us all Finnish people that this book happens in Finland, but it's not written by a Finnish author or you a Swedish-Finnish author. So I just wanted to ask, like, what is your relationship with Finland nowadays, or do you think the Finnish background or the thing that you are partly Finnish have affected in your life a lot?
I don't know. I think I'm very happy that Testamente is that it exists, because before I started writing it, I was actually at the point when my grandmother was sick. I was thinking about her life, and I was thinking that, well, when she dies, I mean, she was not a unique person. She's dead now, but I mean, she lived some years. But when she's gone, no one will remember her. I mean, I will remember her because I'm her grandchild, but then after that, no one will remember her, because it only takes 2 generations and then we forget. I mean, we don't remember anyone else. And the thought of her or people like her, that they will just slip into the silent past and no one will ever know that they existed, that the thought was so hurtful for me.
Yeah.
And so before I started writing, I was really walking around just grunting, why doesn't anybody write about this? Someone should write about these people, because I mean, my family is full of farmers. They don't write books, but someone should write about it, because otherwise it will be like they never existed in fiction.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, it was important to have it exist, and a lot of people in Sweden have also talk to me about it, because there are a lot of people in Sweden with ancestors or family or roots from Finland, and to them also it's I think representation is important,
Yes.
So I don't know if I answered your question. But
yes. Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned the. I was also thinking the other Swedish Finnish authors I have read, like Mikael Niemi's popular music from Vittula and Susanna Alakoski's books also. I don't know, maybe even some was mentioned in your publisher's page or something. But when I was reading, I was also thinking that many times I feel that when Swedish Finnish authors write about Finland, they have certain kind of a nostalgia there. So I don't know, do you recognize this at all or not?
I don't know, isn't all writing, some kind of nostalgia,
Yeah.
really? Just trying to capture something that's already gone?
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm sure you're right, but I don't know. I didn't think about it that way.
It's just a feeling of from outside, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's something I think about. It's not only because a lot of people, there have been a lot of books in Sweden at least about the countryside, I think. And I think it's also because, I don't know if it's the same in Finland, but people, I mean, my mother and that generation, they moved, to the cities because that's where the jobs were. And this made a lot of us grow up in places that we had no connection with. So when you become a certain age, you start thinking about these things. Where do I come from, and why did I become this person? And you start, searching for somehow for the meaning or some kind of starting point, I think.
Yeah. I was also thinking about the countryside and writing about it when I was reading. Maybe because I'm also from countryside, but I moved to the city myself when I was young, and. When I'm writing, I feel that I want to many times handle the countryside, and I do it not so strongly as you do in Testament, but it's still there behind many times. But at the same time, I many times feel that I have lost the connection with the countryside, or I don't actually know how the life is there nowadays. So what do you feel about this? Like, did you have to go to the countryside, or did you have to look for the connection somehow, or did it just came automatically, or...
No, I mean, some parts of it, yes. I interviewed relatives, my mother mostly, about how it was growing up at a farm. But I think that the feeling of being, in a closed environment somehow, because I think, yes, they're in the countryside, but it's also that they are so disconnected from the rest of the world, and this is what we always strive for, being connected to everything and feeling that we're a part of it. But I think that feeling of, just being isolated is something that, this book probably couldn't have taken place where I grew up, like a suburb of Stockholm, but maybe it could have somehow anyway, because I think the psychology works like similar anyway, if you think about it.
Yeah, the countryside is kind of like a set where it happens, but the characters are the main point. I'm curious to ask, like, what about your other books? Like, are they similar to Testament in this sense? Like, do they have it in this kind of rural ambience, or are they more urban?
No, I think they're very urban. Okay. I think I wrote a new book now that's coming out in Sweden in February, and it takes place in the south of France.
Okay.
So it will be quite a long way from Tornedalen.
Yes. Okay. One thing I was also thinking when I was reading was this kind of a class question, or how the background impacts in the people's lives. Like, I don't know, I felt that the parents didn't have really much to give for the children. Like, they were not interested in education, or they were not interested in culture. At least you don't mention it anywhere. And then I felt that the children had really much difficulties when they were struggling in their life and trying to find their way. Maybe Tarmo was interesting exception in this sense, because he got to the city and he got to somehow, I don't know, make this kind of class travel or something. But I mean, he also felt outsider somehow. So was this class question something that you wanted to handle, or that you were thinking when you were writing?
Yes, it was very much, I think, the idea of it, because I think these questions are, that's one of the main questions about Testament, is how do we become the people we are somehow. And on a personal level, I wonder, because I don't know how it came that I need to write books. I mean, no one in my family even reads books. In my growing up, there were no books in my home. I mean, okay, there were maybe 5 books, but no one read books. And I mean, my grandmother, she didn't have proper schooling even. I mean, this is the story she told, that her older brother went to school, and then none of the other ones could go to school, so he would come home and teach them. But that's her story anyway. So I'm very interested in these things. How we become the people we are, and I think with for instance, Tarmo in the book, he is one of those people that maybe you could divide all of humanity into these 2 categories, like people, the ones that absolutely have to leave, their home place, and the other ones who can't leave. So I think he's one of the people who actually had to leave to be able to survive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What about the name, the Testament name? Does it have to do something with this? Like, of course, we understand that it refers to money, or maybe some kind of a fortune somebody can left behind when he or she dies. But is there something more you want to say, naming the book like this?
Well, it was always the name of the book.
Okay.
From when I started writing it, the document was named Testamente, and it was more like in the other meaning of the word, I think, of inheritance somehow, what we leave behind. And it's also the last page of the book. I don't know if you remember it, but then it somehow summarizes the title, I think. But I don't know. My publisher, he didn't like the title. He wanted me to change it, and I tried to change it several times, but I just came up with really bad ideas. So eventually, he just gave in.
Okay. I think it's a good name.
Well,
yeah. I was still thinking about the characters and wondering, like, is there something that you think unites them besides the farm they are living and also the time they are living, like maybe something more spiritual, like I was thinking maybe some kind of a shame they share, or maybe this feeling of outsiderness or something. So do you think there's something for you that you were thinking?
I think that I don't think so, actually. I think that when the people in this book or in any family are born, it's actually, the beginning of a grieving process, being born into a family, because at some point you have to break out of the family, to start your own family. So I don't know. No, I don't think. I think and that's probably one of the problems for these siblings, is that there's nothing, or that they can't see what could be uniting them, actually, because they are very occupied with their father being like the common enemy. But when he's no longer around, I mean, it doesn't get better.
Yeah, maybe they have something very concrete, the father, I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also because a family is also like a small community.
Yeah.
And I mean, in a community you need certain roles to be filled to be able to manage. So and sometimes I think in a family you will play a part because it suits you, maybe, but I think just as often you will play a part because someone has to, and it's vacant. So
yeah. I saw this funny picture in your Finnish publisher's page where you were whispering something in Väinö Linna's ear, and it made me think, like, what is your relationship with Finnish classics, or do you read them, or do you think you refer more to Finnish tradition than the Swedish one?
No, I'm sorry, I don't think so. But I do think, actually, I haven't read the Finnish classics. I'm sorry to say, but I do think that a lot of my writing, especially in Testamente, is related to my relatives' way of how they socialize and spend time with each other. Because in my family in Tornedalen, people don't read books, but everyone's a storyteller, and that's also like this. If inheritance or arv och miljö is one part of this book, or main issue of the book, I think that the other part is maybe truth and memory. Well, everyone in my family, everyone tells stories. That's how you socialize, and sometimes people tell the story about the same event or situation, but depending on who tells it, the story will be very different. And that's somehow also how all these stories about these siblings in the book relate to each other, because everyone has their own truth. But is there like a higher truth, or is it possible to just have different memories of your childhood?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was thinking that it would be interesting to hear something like what kind of conversations there has been in Sweden around your book. Like you mentioned the Swedish-Finnish people who has this background, but what else Swedish critics or media mentioned, or what kind of conversation they were?
I don't know I think, well, the readers have been people, somehow seeing something in the book that reminds them of themselves, maybe, or their family, or where they're from. Not only from Tornedalen or Finland. I mean, people from all parts of the countryside really could relate to it. And I don't know, the critics, well, I wish I remembered more.
Okay.
My memory is very bad. But yeah, they talked. I mean, yeah.
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 Well, I forgot to mention that I know it has been very successful. Like it was nominated to this August prize, and I mean, as far as I have noticed, it also received very nice critics here in Finland. I don't know, maybe you don't care about the critics, but I think it's a good thing anyway.
Yeah, I'm very happy if people like what I write, of course. But I mean, yeah.
Mm. So. In the end, you were mentioning the next book you are writing, set in France. Would you like to tell something more about it still?
Yes, I could try. I mean, it's I finished it, so it will. I guess I have to start talking about it. But it's a story about acting, actually, about film and about. Friendship maybe, and it's it takes place in the south of France, and it tells the story of two young women who are best friends. They met when they were in gymnasiet together, and then one of them became a very famous movie star, and she now lives in the south of France with her twice as old boyfriend, and she asks her friend, the narrator of the book, to come there for the summer. So they spend the time in this French chateau together, and a lot of things happen there. But I don't know. It was. I think I was longing to travel this last years. You know, going for a holiday in the south of France. Yeah. So I went in my mind somehow. Mm.
Yeah, and it's coming out on February. You said.
Yes, in Sweden. Yes.
Nice. Okay, so I think our time is running out little by little. So thank you, Nina. It was great to talk
reading
with
the
you.
book.
And I think now there's going to be a break, and Nina and the other authors are signing their books there at the lobby. Thank you.
Thank you.